Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we've got another incredible guest. Love meeting people from all over the United States and hearing their stories. This one I'm particularly excited about because I have a few friends who have had similar experiences, but not for the same reason. So we're going to talk about that, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But Jim Kukral is his name, and he's out of Ohio. Now, not many guests are going to come on and admit to the whole world that they pooped their pants. This guy, he is shameless. He really doesn't care. But yeah, so if you're sitting down or you're getting up, wherever driving, I would be in a position where you can be focused and thinking about what success could mean to you and what would that look like moving forward in your life. So get ready. We're going to listen to Jim tell his story about his early childhood, kind of how he grew up. How did he end up coming to poop his pants as an adult, not as a child? And where is he today? Where is he going? Right? And this is what's most important. What legacy is he building? So go ahead, Jim. Thanks for hopping on. Sorry about all the technical difficulties leading up to actually speaking, but I'm glad we got those figured out. Go ahead and share with us your story and where is it you're headed from here?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I always find when I do podcasts like this, I don't like to talk about myself. So if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching it or whatever, this is very difficult for me. I don't want to blabber on about who I am, but I'll do it because that's the format of this show. So I'm just letting you know. I'm a suburban guy, grew up in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, I'm a Midwest regular dad, family man, but I'm also an entrepreneur. So my dad was an electrician for General Motors for 40 plus years. My mom was a school teacher for 40 plus years. I got 3 siblings, and we live in the suburbs about 10 miles south of Cleveland. So really wonderful life. I'll be 50 this year in a month or so at the time of this recording. So I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, which is frankly the best time in the world to grow up, in my opinion, before all this technology and social media and all that junk. It's worth it, but boy, it was just a grand time back then. Yes, I said the word grand. Who says that? Nobody does. So I am old for sure. So yeah, I never really knew what I wanted to do. Was very independent as a child. And by the time I was 10 or 12 years old, cooking my own meals, doing my own laundry. And then I did terrible in high school, and my guidance counselor, literally looked at me and I said, I want to apply for colleges because that's what you did back in the 80s. You went to the guidance counselor and he said, well, let me give you the applications. And he looked at my grades and he said, why are you applying to college? I said, well, I want to go to college. That's what people do. That's what my brothers did. And he said, yeah, but your grades are terrible. He goes, why don't you become a janitor? Why don't you be a garbage man? And I looked at him and I said, okay, but I'd like to go to college. He's like, well, we'll apply, but you probably won't get in anywhere. And he was right. I got rejected from about 10 local community colleges until one accepted me, University of Akron. And I went to college, and I got out of college, and I started my workforce, my job, and realized pretty quickly that I didn't like working for other people. Now, the good news about this whole thing was, as I was getting out of college, it was right about the beginning of when the internet was started to become a big thing. So I took a job at an agency building websites back in the day when nobody knew how to build websites. I didn't know how. They handed me an HTML book the first day and said, learn how to build websites. Nobody knew how to build those. So I built Ernst & Young's first website, Sherwin-Williams' first website. And I helped grow that company to millions and millions of dollars. Then I realized I didn't like working for them. I wasn't making enough money. They were driving me too much. And I went and started my own company. And we grew that to 150 employees. And then we sold that company to another local company. And then I realized, wow, I'm working for somebody else again. I don't want to do that. So 20 years ago, I sold my share in that company, became my own boss again. And for the last 20 years, have been running my own marketing agency, writing books, speaking professionally, and in general, just having a lot of fun raising my family. Now, that's where 2020 comes in. During the pandemic, I get diagnosed with colon cancer and make a realization that, I want to change things up. I don't want to be in marketing any longer, right? So I threw all of that away. Threw 25 years of experience and branding away, because that's what I care about. I truly believe my purpose is to help inspire other people. And I finally wanted to do what I want to do, which is help other people, inspire other people, help them figure out what their purpose and their legacy is, because that's the journey I'm going on. So here's where we are today. I have a brand called Life Apocalypse, and I'm writing a one-man show about dads. And I love what I'm doing, retired from marketing. And that's where we are today.
Awesome. I love it. So let's dive in here, because I feel like there's a lot of things that people think about and don't think about. And we want to talk about both aspects of it. So many people listening to this feel like they're just regular people, right? They had an average life. There's no horror stories in the closet. There's no fireworks, wonderful stories. They didn't get to meet their favorite celebrity. They're just normal people. They know normal people. They do normal things, and they go about life pretty much normal. There are a few people who are the crazy extra achievers, and then there's a few people who listen that honestly, this conversation may offend them because they think we're striving too hard to succeed. Like just be normal, right? And they're bringing down the average, and we love you, and it's okay, but we hope you stay and listen. But let's talk about this. How did as you're going through school, because it could not have been your first experience that you found out that you were not great at school when the guidance counselor told you. There had to have been other signs before that. What were the signs before leading up to you not wanting to do the homework, not wanting to turn things in, really participating in the activities of being good at school?
Well, I never did homework. I never did. I don't even know how I passed high school. I think I got straight D's. You get D's just for showing up, right? I didn't, what turned out is I went to college and ended up getting almost a 4.0. I didn't like the structure of high school. I was friends with everyone in high school. I was friends with the jocks and the band and the geeks and everybody. I was kind of like the kid in the middle, but I just didn't like the structure of high school. I'm an independent person who likes to do things when I like to do them. So telling me I got to be an 8 to 5 and do this, it's just why I don't want to work for anybody, which is why I don't want someone telling me what to do. I am a serial entrepreneur through and through, and high school was a perfect example of that. So
yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, is because well, let's go back even further before I go into that. How many siblings do you have?
So I got 3 siblings, but they're all 10, 11, and 12 years older than me. So by the time I was 10, they were in college, right? And by the time I was 10 years apart, I was the 4th kid. My parents had already done 3 who were already almost out of the house. You know what that meant in the 70s? You go do whatever you want. We don't care. We did 3 kids already. So I'd wake up in the morning, 8 in the morning, and be like, hey, I'm going. I'll see you in 16 hours. And they'd be like, okay, here's a quarter. Find a payphone and call us if you need something. That was my life.
Yeah. So, it's interesting when you think about and this goes for everybody. So thinking about generational things, and I'm sure you've heard about this research, but there's actually a name for kids in your situation and in that era of children.
Latchkey
kids. I have it written down, right? Because most people don't understand. That's it's almost like its own. We call them Zennials or Millennials, right? Latchkey is a certain demographic of children, and the 10 years older, the people who grew up in the 60s, they weren't considered latchkey children as much. Their parents were still involved in their lives.
Yeah, right? Those are the boomers. I'm a Gen X.
Yeah. So the Gen X is considered more of the latchkey generation. And it's interesting, they naturally are more independent because they actually spent their entire life being independent, like almost their entire life. Short, like as soon as they got out of diapers, you say you started cooking at 10. Many people, they that was it, right? They didn't even cook. They went to the fast food restaurants. McDonald's was super cheap back then. And it's not super expensive now, but it's right on par with everything else. You know, if you took your family out to McDonald's, it's not a few quarters like it used to be. So it's interesting because that is a certain way of being. But go back to your parents. Although they were very involved in like, hey, you go do what you want, how did they feel about your lack of involvement in education? Did they even care, or was it just like
terrible? Because my mom was a school teacher, right? You know, so they were not happy that I was not good in school. But my parents always believed in me. My dad was just kind of the worker guy, and he said, just take care of it. You know, he didn't ask me about schoolwork, didn't really care. And my mom was concerned about it because I was also a troubled youth. I also spent a lot of time doing dumb suburban things, you know, blowing up someone's mailbox or, you know, something stupid, you know, nothing like Guantanamo Bay, anything, just like, you know, dumb stuff, right?
Sure.
Knocking on people's doors or, you know. So, but being left unsupervised allowed me to have all that time to do all those things, which is so ironic because I have two kids now who are 19 and 16. And I was a helicopter parent in a lot of ways. I still like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Who you're seeing? What time you're going to be home? It's so funny that I'm the opposite of what I grew up.
I don't know if it's funny at all. I don't know. I'm the same way though. I'm the 7th of 11 kids. And by the time I grew up, like I was running around town. We were all homeschooled. So we didn't have school. We were all homeschooled. So there wasn't a lot of education going on. My mom made sure, and bless her for this, that we could all read, write, and do basic math, do our 12 times tables. We knew our ABCs. We could read 3 and 4 letter words. And then it was like, if you want to learn, here's some books and go teach yourself. And I started working full time at 11. But even before that, when I was 6 years old and I wanted to go join the soccer team, there was no money. And so it was like, well, if you want to do that, you got to go find some way to make money. Yeah. So I pushed the old snapper lawnmower up and down the thing with gas, no bag, and cut people's grass. And like, so it's definitely I think it breeds the lack of wanting to work for somebody else. That level of independence breeds that. Do you feel like had your older siblings, the ones that are 10 years older, grown up in that same type of environment, they would have turned out similar, or no, you're just
they would have turned out similar. What's interesting about this whole thing is that when you're looking at what happened with COVID in 2020, you know, they're calling it the Great Resignation or whatever they want to call it. You know, you're having an entire generation of kids have gone through this traumatic experience because everybody's been traumatized from this in one way or another. I think that the generation that's going to come out of the COVID is going to be like the Gen Xers. I think they're going to be really independent and not given a you know what about stuff, and they're going to want to live their lives the way they want to live it. And I think everybody, I don't care if you're 70 or 16,
well, I think
is going to come out of COVID like that.
What's interesting about COVID is it really shattered. It's so funny actually, because if you think about it, a lot of people are like, well, now there's even more social restrictions than there was before. There's even more social judgment. But what it did is it really shattered the perspective that any of that mattered. You know, it's like, whatever, there's too much stuff going on, too many different opinions. I just am going to do me, and I'm either going to subscribe to that belief or not. And that goes for everything in life. Once one belief got shattered, then it's like, well, do I even have to have my job? I can work from anywhere now. Why not work and travel the world?
It's the greatest shift in mindset in human history, 2020. They will look back on it hundreds of years from now and go, that is when society as a whole started to think differently, about where we want to go. Is money as important as it was before, or should I be a little happier? I mean, Gen X or Gen Z and millennials, by the way, the oldest millennial is 40 right now. So
I know.
They're 2/3 of the entire workforce. Okay. So Gen Z and millennials have already started to prioritize experiences over income. Okay. It's not like it was in the 60s where the hippies became yuppies. This is the argument I have with people all the time. They always say, oh, when they get older, they'll want money and they're going to sell out. And no, the Gen Zs aren't going to do that. They're more interested in the river rafting trip and brunch than they are about that corporate job in the cubicle with the fluorescent lights up top. And COVID made it worse. And I'm telling you, if you are doubling down and thinking that the generation is going to come back and want to go work in your crappy office with your crappy lights with a crappy boss, it's not going to happen. The company I sold out of 20 years ago can't keep staff. Before the pandemic, they couldn't hire 20-year-olds unless they promised them they could work from home whenever they want. And if they wanted to come to work, they were allowed to bring their dog and they were allowed to, take this, so it's a different world now. So the point is that now is the time to build your own business. Now is the time to build your own brand. Now is the time to really think about what you want to do for the rest of your life. When I got colon cancer, I made the decision with the pandemic. I said, I'm going to write a one-man show and I'm going to put it out and do it. I've never performed a show. I've done hundreds of speaking engagements in front of audiences, but that's a speech. That's not a performance, right? Where I have a script perfect, but you know what I'm talking about. There's a difference between a play and doing a TED Talk, which I've done a TED Talk, okay?
Sure, yeah.
There's a difference, okay? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it's true. I actually had a guy, Douglas Beck, I don't know if you've heard of him. He actually, he has tons of awards for writing his own one-man show. It's about a war veteran. And anyways, he took letters from, I think it's World War II, but it's phenomenal. It's be worth looking into.
What's it called? You'll send it to me after.
I'll show you after. But anyways, I just think it's fascinating that this shift that's happened in our lives. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? I just believe what makes sense. So, but it's fascinating. I'm watching. So I have a few different things in my life that are happening right now. I'm reading Atlas Shrugged. I'm like halfway through Atlas Shrugged, which is such a long book. I don't know how anybody deals with this book. It's so long. And then watching Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you ever watched that, Handmaid's Tale.
I know what it is. I got through the first season and I thought it just wasn't for me.
Oh, it's extreme in crazy ways. And also like you walk outside and it's happening in other ways. So that's what's weird about it. And then I've read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is a completely different book about finances and the world wars across the span of time since the Romans. And then you have what's going on over in Afghanistan right now. And it's just this like massive, weird thing that's going on. And really, it forces you to really think, what am I doing right now that one is going to have an impact long term? And two, how am I advertising that? How am I making sure that I'm actually going to be remembered the way I want to be remembered?
Mm-hmm. So you can't really see my wrists. It's hard to see. But I have this tattoo that says mindset, lifestyle, impact, purpose, and family. That's tattooed on my wrist. And it's right here so I can look at it every single day. Okay. Because that's what I believe are the components of what I call a life apocalypse, which is a transitional moment in your life that moves you forward or backwards, right? It's everybody thinks their life is a straight line from birth to death. It's not. You go up, down, it curses up and down, scribbles. And those moments, whether it's up or down, are life apocalyptic events, in my opinion. Okay. Usually in a human being's life, you have 3 to 5 big ones. Like for me, colon cancer, big one, but also getting married, good one. Having children, good one, right? So you have big ones, bad ones, and good ones, and they affect how you move forward through your own timeline. Okay. The question is how do you move forward or move backward through them, right? So do you take PTSD, which is a real thing, traumatic stress disorder, right, which is a real serious thing, or do you call it PTG, which is a new thing, personal post-traumatic growth, is you move forward through something, right? So we are living in extraordinary times. You are correct. And each of us has to make a decision. Why do we want to be here? These are the things I discuss in my one-man show from a dad perspective. I'll give you a good example. People tend to think of leaving a legacy as a financial thing, right? You hear the word legacy and you think, oh, I'm leaving a lake house and $10 million to my children. Yeah, okay. You want to know what the real legacy is? The real legacy is after you're gone and your kids go, remember how fun Dad was? Remember that time in the restaurant when Dad slipped or the seagull pooped on his head at Disneyland? That's your legacy, right? Mm-hmm. Your purpose, perhaps, is to help raise really good human beings who are going to affect the world in a positive way, right? Who are going to really help the world instead of hurt it. And one of the things you said in the beginning of this was really interesting. Maybe that's enough, because people always worried that they have to be some outlier, that they have to be famous, that they have to be some big thing. You have to do this great big thing in your life. One thing I learned in the last, almost 50 years of life now, maybe this is enough, right? Maybe just being a good human being, raising good kids, having a good family, doing something positive to the world is really enough. And you don't have to be one of those outliers, right? And once you learn to accept that, I think you become happier.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so funny. I can't stop smiling. He's looking at me like, why is he smiling so big? Because, guys, this is literally what I believe. We use different words to describe the same thing. And most of that, to be honest, is purely branding. It's purely tribal language so that people know when they're talking about I'm going to screw this word up, apocalyptic life or life apocalypse. He's branded all of his language to make sense inside of his brand.
Correct.
His 5 pillars, therefore his brand, which are awesome.
Remember, apocalypse means revelation. When people hear the word apocalypse, they think zombies. Mm-hmm. Okay? They think Will Smith and TV shows and zombie books. Apocalypse means literally revelation. What's a revelation? It's a moment where you figure out you're happy, you're sad, you're whatever, and you move forward or backwards in your life once you have all these revelational moments. I'll ask you this question. Anyone listening to this, tell me you didn't have any revelations after 2020. Right? Yeah. People you realized you didn't have time for any longer, right? Things in your life you finally realized you took for granted, all the cliche stuff. 2020 revealed to ourselves that we're, in fact, mostly living in a dream world. 2020 woke us up to the fact that this could all end at any moment. Beyond world wars, beyond 9/11, terrible tragedy, right? Terrible, terrible things. The pandemic hit billions of people across the board, spiritually, financially, mentally, physically, you name it. So when I look at the last 40 years, and maybe this is somebody else, maybe you spent the last 40 years working to fill your bank account. Maybe that wasn't the best use of your time on this earth, right? This is why you're seeing a lot of people right now selling their homes, moving into an RV, and living in a van down by the river. I mean, this is literally happening. This is why you see the global workforce dwindling, because people really don't care about going back to that crappy job with that same crappy boss. Okay. This is the world we're living in now. And anyone thinks that it's going back to where it was before, keep dreaming. 2020 changed everything. So if you're listening to this right now, what I want you to do is just finally admit to yourself that things did change, and you have been having revelations about things you wanted to change things. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're just like, man, it's great. I just want to go back to normal. That's not most people. That's not the reality of the situation.
Yeah. And even if you did want to go back to normal, because so much has changed, what is normal now? And that normal varies by state. It varies by family group. It varies by corporation. Yeah. Normal is such a fluid concept at this point. I think that's one of the mindsets that shifted, is like, there is no normal anymore. There's just like a lot of people doing their own thing. And we hope that we can all communicate and have similar values and goals to survive somewhat of a tribal nature. I mean, you're seeing nations being torn apart over things that 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, were not even part of the conversations. They're changing the definitions of words underneath our feet. And it's just like, what are we going to do about that? I like
just change, right? It's just change. Society is changing. Okay. You're either going to go along with it or you're not. Right. So, you're either going to say this is acceptable or it's not, right? And generations are really the only ways that we really make changes in society terms. I mean, we're in this tribal world right now. My last book, called Unskippable, is all about the tribes in this world. And it's focused on a marketing perspective, how people buy because they're in certain tribes, right? Belief-driven buyers choose to make purchases and buy from brands that share their common beliefs. That's the world we're living in now, right? Mm-hmm. There's a guy by the name of William James. He is the modern leader, godfather of psychology, right? Everyone thinks Freud is really the modern psychology person. He's not. William James is like, the OG. He's the Jordan. He's the LeBron of psychology. And he's got some amazing quotes if you ever want to look him up, but he's got a really good one about lifestyle. He says, if you can change your mind, you can change your life. Okay. And that's why mindset's number one here, because it's really all about really figuring out where you want to go, right? You're not going to take action on something until you can really change your mind. You're not going to lose weight until you're ready to lose weight. You're not going to quit smoking until you're ready to quit smoking, until your brain decides that you're ready to do it. You could try every drug trick in the world. Until your brain is ready to make the decision to do it, it will all fail, right? So mindset is the first thing. The next one is lifestyle, okay? Lifestyle, very apropos to what's going on from 2020, a lot of people are making changes in how they want to live their life now. It's not so important to have so much money anymore. Still, there's a lot of people who like money. I like money, but I'm not going to waste the rest of my life in pursuit of $1 when I can do something I really love instead, because guess what? The world literally could end any day. Like, you could go to the grocery store tomorrow and for whatever reason, you could get a disease that exists and you could die. I don't care if you believe in it or not. People are dying. It's a possibility in the back of your mind. You know somebody that died from this, from walking out of their house. So it can happen, okay? Whether or not it happens to you, probably not. The numbers are low, but it can happen now. So lifestyle, what kind of lifestyle you want to live? What kind of impact do you want to create on the world? You really ever thought about that? What do you want to do to help people, right? Beyond donating to your favorite charity before tax time. You want to help save hairless cats? You want to help homeless veterans? Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good goal. What impact are you really creating in the world before you're gone? And then purpose is, purpose, what the heck am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing while I'm on this planet? What was the thing that drives me? People who have purpose wake up every day excited and passionate about what they do, and they love it. When I started writing this one-man show, I thought, boy, this is going to affect so many people. They're going to love this. And I've never been more excited. But here's the tough part about all this stuff. Everything that happens in your life happens at a certain time for a reason, whatever that reason is. Some people get all this stuff when they're 5 years old. Some people don't get this till a week before they're dead, okay? Some people like me are figuring this out at 49 years old, okay? Stop trying to force it. Everything's happening for a reason. at the time in your life when it was supposed to happen, in my opinion. So you can't force the change when you want to change things, and when you can try physical things, cancer, things might happen to you to try and force it. Everything's happening for a reason. When you get to that point, just run with it, ride the wave, I guess is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that though. Cause I think that, I actually just moved my family down to Arizona for a similar in somewhat, I don't know if the right word is combat, because combat's not the right word, but maybe a different perspective on that perspective. And that is, I think that although we can't force change per se, if we get so stuck in our ways that we can't handle change and we don't know how to adapt to change, then I think that leads people to dark places when change happens, because we can't change change is happening all around us, whether we like it or not. And we can insulate ourselves to a point so we can continue to live our status quo. But there's people out there who believe that we can get back to it, the same normal, that we don't have to change, that change isn't going to be part of our lives if we don't want it to be. And I don't think that that's a reality. And so for the people who do think it's a reality or who have lived their lives in a very similar position, I think it is wise to go through specific changing environment or circumstances for yourself, and you're creating uncomfortable change circumstances, so that you can build up the muscles of change and how to be resilient, how to, instead of have PTSD from a change, how to have PTSD and actually turn it into a growth, right? Because I love that. That's such a cool change there. But that's a muscle that has to be practiced in my mind. It's a mental muscle, it's an emotional muscle, and sometimes it's a physical muscle to be able to actually handle that type of change. So although we can't create or we can't force change, I think we can put ourselves in situations that are new intentionally, because I think if we're changing faster than our surroundings, then we're in control of where we're still going to a degree, than if we're sitting there waiting for change to happen around us. But I've never had big life experiences that have told me otherwise, that were completely out of my control, that I've accepted to where
that's another thing too. Up until I had cancer, I never had a what they call a witness story, right?
Sure.
I lost my arm in a biking accident. Those are amazing things that happen to people. They're tragedies. But I've never had that. I never had, I lived a very privileged existence.
Mm-hmm.
Parents paid for me to go to college, right? So when I had cancer, one of the things I resisted doing was using that as a moment, because millions and millions of people have had cancer, and millions of people have died from it. So I'm no different than anybody else. But I'm okay with that. What people try to force becoming something they're not. Right. As far as the change goes, all changes is fear, right? The society is changing. The meanings of words are changing. I'm in Cleveland. The sports team changed from Indians to Guardians. Okay. Do I really care? No. It's a name of a sports team. Am I emotionally connected to that team for the last 50 years? Yeah. Do I drive by the stadium every single day on my way to my office? Yeah. Am I going to lose sleep over it? No. But it sucks. Sucks they're changing it. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to move forward with my life. And that's really what it comes down to, is where do you really want to go? I mean, go back to 2020 again. Think of it as a benchmark moment. Where do you really want to go? Do you want to be the guy or the gal upset 13 hours a day, arguing with people on Facebook because the Indians changed their names to the Guardians? Really? Is that really who you want to be? Well, guess what? Your kid's in the other room and would like to play a video game with you, or wants to go fishing, or your wife would like you to go and do dishes with her or something. I mean, you need to really think about those types of things, and figure out where you want to be. And again, it might not happen till you get older. It might never happen. Some people love that stuff, but I don't.
Yeah, no, I agree. I watch a lot of TV, and there's the successful people don't watch TV. I'm like, I like watching TV. So
I like TV too. It's relaxing. What's wrong with
I
that?
think you can make money and watch TV. Anyways, I watched this movie called About Time. It's like this love story where the men in this family, they're able to time travel. But as you talk about these like big events, like having a baby, getting married, there's certain things that if they travel, or a death in a family, if they travel back behind that and change anything behind that experience, then
breaks the timeline.
Then it screws with the timeline. So it's a little bit different than the butterfly effect, where it's like you do anything and everything changes. It was able to be more selective about what changed. But what was fascinating is the dad, who was dying of cancer. He was telling his son his advice of how to use this skill or this blessing was to go through every day and live it with like all of the stress that somebody could have. Like, oh my gosh, I might not get this job proposal. My wife might die. Like, go through it with all of the stress that every normal human would have. And then after the day's over, go back and relive it, only recognizing all of the things and being grateful for everything.
Yeah.
And then he got to, the end of the movie said it's kind of like a voiceover of a montage of his life. And he's saying, I got to the point where I very rarely would go back to relive a day because I had trained myself to live in a state of peace or ecstasy every day the first time.
Yep. And here's the unfortunate reality is that it takes, sometimes people never get that, right? You could watch that show and you even believe in it, but you may not practice it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen a million shows like that until I got sick, until the pandemic hit and my life shifted. I wasn't really practicing as much as so it's either going to happen or it's not. I guess my personality is I can't force myself to try and be this amazing, thoughtful, perfect person, and nobody else should as well, right? Like, that's why I can't read books on like habit stacking and like tricks and all this stuff. Like, my personality is like, it's going to happen when it happens, and I'm going to try to be a good person. And if it happens, it happens. And there's no way I'm going to force it. No one's going to teach me some secret 5-point step to success that's going to change my life.
And
too much pressure
to point out, like, yes, all of that's true. And you were able to help build yourself multiple successful companies. And then you like dropped it and you said, well, I'm going to go do it again. Guys, 150 stages, like, to speak on 150 stages, that takes not only like a lot of dedication, but that's like the equivalent of one stage a month for almost 15 years.
And that number's low.
And that's probably big stages. That's not all the smaller stages that you could consider being a stage as well. So like, when you're going and presenting and sharing your story and talking to that many people, the reality is every time he gets on this podcast, that's another stage, right? That's another place where he's sharing his heart and soul with the people in front of him. And although it's a different medium, it's the same process. You're still sharing your story. You're still creating an impact. And to do that, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of commitment, takes a lot of focus, and you can still do it and accept it as it comes, rather than try and force that to happen faster than it should. And in my experience, it starts out slow, and then you go through like periods where you're really booked and you have lots of experiences and they're fun, and you get to choose what experiences you want. And then sometimes there's not a lot going on, and that's okay too. You don't have to be doing things that are outside of what you are comfortable or what you feel natural doing. And you can still become successful with living a more purpose-driven life rather than just this is what's expected of me life.
Yeah, Pablo Picasso said the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give it away. Okay? So when you're thinking about what your really impact you're trying to create on this world, what your purpose is, it's to take the gift that you have and share it with other people. Okay, whether that's religious or financial, spiritual, physical, mental, whatever that is. The purpose in your life is to give away what you're really good at.
Yep, I agree. I tried to charge for what I'm really good at, and frankly for myself. And this doesn't mean anybody else is bad for charging for what they're good at. So don't interpret this the wrong way.
You should charge for what you're good at. That's what business is all about. You solve a solution to a problem, and it's worthwhile.
I agree to a point, and if I had to, I think I probably would. But honestly, for me, what I believe my gift and my highest gift and skill is, when I've tried to charge for it, I felt out of integrity. I felt like I should be doing this out of the kindness and love for the other human, and not.
So here's a tip for you. Okay, I have a solution to your problem.
Yeah, go for
it. In my book, Go Direct, I wrote about a strategy, and I forget what it's called, but basically it's this: you should go help people, and then ask them how much help it was worth. Right? In other words, give away the product, which I did for the book. I said, "Here, have the book for free." And then if you found it valuable, you can donate something. Guess what happened?
You made more money than trying to
sell. Made way more money because the people downloaded the book for free and they were like, "Oh my God, this was amazing, Jim. Here's $50 instead of $3.99. Here's $150, Jim. Thank you." Right? That is the reality. That's what Pablo was trying to say. Okay. Give it away. Right. So that's the answer to your problem is right there. I do not charge for what I do, but I do have a family, and I'd like to pay my bills and be able to keep doing this for free. You don't owe me anything. I'm glad to help you today. If you want to help me out, here's my PayPal. Here's my Venmo. I'll take whatever you want. I don't care if that's $1. I don't care if you give me anything. That's the answer to your problem.
No, and I agree. And that's literally what I do, because that feels the most integral. Me is to give it all away for free, and then if you see value in it and you feel like whatever, then you can compensate me. And to be honest, because I have two sides of my company, like I actually have a business that I run and I charge for services and stuff, and that's fine. But for my real gifts and what I feel in my heart is like my charity, I don't charge for it. And when somebody does choose to financially compensate me for those gifts, that money means more than the tens of thousands of dollars I make in my for-profit business. I couldn't care less about that money. But when somebody hands me $500 for making an impact on their life, I'll talk for weeks about that $500 to my wife. I'm like, I made $500 today. Well, $10,000 being deposited in my account over there for my for-profit business. That $500 is like, you know what? That's way more meaningful than the dollars that I exchange for services or goods or trade or whatever. That's business. This passion and being compensated for my passion, that is more meaningful to me than any amount of money that somebody could pay me. The money is simply a reflection of, I know how much value, because I know how much money this other person has. I know how much value they saw in what I offered.
Here's how you know when you really have it nailed down is when people pay you to do something, to offer advice or give them whatever, and then they thank you for it. So here's a check for $5,000. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me pay you.
Thanks for letting me pay you. That's the secret sauce. When you have a business or a product or consulting or whatever, when that happens, you're doing something very, very right.
Yeah, I would agree completely. Absolutely, 100%. Cool. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and kind of learn more about your perspective and maybe your books, learn all the books you read, because he's written 10 books. So, and there's a lot there. Where would they go to get more information, just to get in contact with you?
Yeah, it's just myname.com, Jim Kukral. So just Kukral. And if you type that in, I'll be the first one to show up. Unfortunately, for all the other Jim Kukrals in the world, I've owned my domain name for like 15 plus years. And I own the first like 10 pages of Google search results. So all the other Jim Kukrals in the world don't like me.
Just out of curiosity, how many other Jim Kukrals are there?
There's actually one that lives about 30 minutes from me here in Northeast Ohio.
Really?
Yes.
I've
Never met him.
name.
And there's a bunch in Europe. There's a bunch of other ones that are actually out there. Yeah.
Interesting. There are quite a few Sam Knickerbockers or Samuel Knickerbockers, but none of them are as prominent. There's me and one other guy. He's a Baptist preacher in the South, and his YouTube channel, they upload a new sermon like every week, and they get 400 or 500 people to see every video. And so he shows up on Google searches on images and shows up on video searches. I still have 90%, but it's me, the first two generally, and then him. So like he does show up because his YouTube presence is bigger than mine right now. So
well, my friend David Scott, who calls himself David Meerman Scott, only because David Scott is also an astronaut who's been to the moon and a congressman of 40 plus years. So he had to call himself David Meerman Scott, which is a middle name, just to differentiate.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because this Baptist preacher, he actually has like a similar hair color. His wife and I, obviously, if you saw them right next to you, like they don't look anything alike. But if you didn't know us, then you wouldn't know which family is which. And I used to wear a shirt and tie, a suit every day, shaved face, like clean shaven, everything. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this Baptist preacher to start growing a beard and stop wearing a suit, or even stop wearing a tie. So I actually, in all of my branding pictures, everything, that's why I have a beard, is branding. And also all of my pictures, I no longer wear ties in my promotional pictures, and rarely will I even wear a suit, purely out of a branding choice of like,
who wants to wear a suit anymore? Really? I mean,
I actually don't mind them. Like I
don't mind it either, but
I like it. They look good.
What?
But yeah, I agree. You know, so anyways, it's just fascinating. Like the things that people don't even think about when it comes to branding, it really gets that detail of like, okay, how do I make sure that I'm the number one person that's being seen and I'm recognizable and everybody knows my face over the next guy's face?
Good point.
Good. So this is Legacy on Rapid Fire here. So the Legacy on Rapid Fire is, my mind just went blank. Okay. What do you think is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Time to really get it done in between running my businesses and taking care of my family.
Okay. And what is the hardest thing you've ever accomplished thus far in your life?
Oh, geez. Getting over cancer, fist-sized tumor, and chemotherapy, but probably 20 years of being the breadwinner and earning an income to raise a family in modern America, without anyone helping me with any of my bills for 20 years. It's been a very difficult task.
That's awesome. And what's your greatest accomplishment to this point in your life?
Oh, definitely my children, right? Two kind, amazing, beautiful, smart people who are going to make a difference in this world. It's such a cliche answer, and everyone probably says that, but I'm sorry. That's what I believe. The impact I'm going to leave is those kids.
Sure. No, that's incredible. I love it. So if there was one habit, mindset, or behavior you think contributes the most to your success, what would you say it is?
I'm not afraid of failure. Failure is not in an entrepreneur's DNA, right? I will fail 100 times, and that 101 time is a business I will create that will feed my family for 10 years, right?
Yep.
So I'm not afraid to fail at all.
I think we need to I don't know if there's another word in English to express that would make sense, or we could change the verbiage, because it's like, I'm going to fail. I'm not afraid of failure, but then I'm going to fail 100 times before I succeed. It's like, no, you didn't fail.
You figured out, who said it? I figured out 99 ways to not do it.
I think so. So I just think we need another word that's like short and succinct, like failure or fail, that is the positive. Like, because in my mind, failure, the only time somebody really fails is when they stop trying. Like, that's pretty much failure. So I'm not afraid of failure because it's never going to happen. So at that point, even the statement, I'm not afraid of failure, doesn't really make sense, or I fail 100 times. It's like, no, I'm going to continue to go until I succeed.
Yeah. But you say that, but you're like me, and we're built differently, and most people don't think like us. People really take failure hard. They like, if somebody rejects them or they lose a job or something doesn't happen, like that's a life-changing event for most people. So for me, it's like, all right, yeah, I'm moving on. I'm ready to kick some butt, get back up. For most people, that's why they stay in jobs they hate.
So
they never move forward.
I would say that every lack of success or opportunity missed isn't necessarily a failure. Every rejection isn't necessarily a failure. You can choose for it to become a failure if you choose to stop trying. But
you said it right there. You and I choose for it not to be a failure, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, I asked for a raise at work and the boss said, get the hell out of my office. And they literally go home and have a beer and go, I completely failed. I'll never do that again. It's a mindset thing. You're either going to, and here's how you overcome these things. Your pain level, okay? When you get sick, you go to the hospital and they say, what's your pain level? When I had kidney stones, I said, I'm at 11, not 10. I'm at 11. Please help me, right? Same thing in life. You will learn to make changes in life as soon as your pain level gets to a high. If you hate that boss and you don't like that job, but it's only a 5, you're probably never going to get used to failing. You're going to be like, I can deal with this pain and I'll stay here. But when it gets to like a 7, then it gets to an 8 and you're like, oh my God, the pain level is so high. I can finally overcome this next step, which is the fear of failure. And I'm going to take that risk. So it's all about pain level. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Yeah, you're right. And pain comes in a lot of different forms. It's not just physical pain, it's social pain, mental.
Correct.
Lots of different types of pain. Agreed. Okay, so here's the final question, and this is my favorite question to ask. If you died, right? Because we're going to pretend that you died, because it's going to happen to everybody someday. And your great grandchildren, they're sitting around the table discussing your life, the impact you had, and the legacy you left. What do you want them to be saying about Jim's legacy 6 generations from now?
That he didn't just take life as was designed by, to go to do the work and just do what everybody else did. He wrote books, he got on stage, he affected and helped other people in the world be inspired to live their dreams. And he just didn't go sit behind a desk for 40 years and do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But okay, my dad was an electrician for 40, 50 years. My mom was school teacher. There's nothing wrong with anyone who wants to do that. But I just wanted to be different than that, right? So that's what I want people to say is look what he left behind and the work that he did and how many people he really affected and made laugh and made cry through his content and his speeches and his books. That's what I want.
Awesome. I love it. And you're gonna make that happen. Super excited. Thank you so much for hopping on and sharing your story with us. It's just crazy that the things that we go through in life, we experience, and that we get to come out and become stronger because of. And I'm grateful for you showing up and honoring us with your story.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk to you later, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.